What's up everyone, it's a Knife Style here, and today I'm going to be doing my full review on the Spyderco Stretch. This is the newest edition of the Stretch with the straight spine K390 blade and this blue FRN handle. Seki City, Japan has this kind of, or that factory does this line of knives in K390 with this blue handle. I have the Dragonfly, there's also the Endura, Indela, Delica, and I think the Police as well. And this was a sprint run that when I first saw it at the reveal at the start of the year, I was like, I want that, because I have a knife in K390 already, but this is just like a secondary knife that I'm using to like maybe open a package here or there, and I wanted a knife in K390 that is a full-size knife that I'm going to put through pretty much everything I have the opportunity to. So that's why I picked this knife up. I was really excited about it. It was cool because I think I was like one of the first people to get this knife, because Knife Ship Free had a drop of them, but there was like only a couple, and I picked up one of them, so it was cool getting them, or getting this knife before everyone else or a lot of other people. But anyway, this is my first experience with the Stretch, so it's going to be a full review of the Stretch and me talking as well, me talking a little bit about K390. First, let's do a quick size comparison. So one knife this knife is very similar to is the Paramilitary 2. As you can see, the blades look similar. The actual like shape of the edge is a little bit different. But very close looking knives. I will be doing a battle of the blades between these two knives, which will be interesting in the future. Let me also put up the Mannix here. And then what else could I do? I'll do the Military up top, Spidey Chef on the bottom. And those are the size comparisons. So let's talk about the looks of this knife, or yeah, I guess I'll just talk about like brief description of everything. So it's got K390 satin finish blade with a blue FRN handle scales. It's a back lock with a 4-way reversible pocket clip, made in the Seki City, Japan factory for about $140. So now let's talk about the looks of this. And originally in my first impressions video, I was like, yeah, this knife looks really ugly. And I still don't think it's the best looking knife, but a lot of people were like, I actually don't think it looks that bad. And honestly, I don't think it looks as ugly as some of Spyderco's other models, like the Spidey Chef or something. But it's still, I think it's maybe the blade to handle ratio, which I don't care about in use, but looks, it doesn't look that good. But overall, I am not opposed to the looks of this knife. For the blade, so K390 as a steel, it's a steel that a lot of the guys that I watch that test steels say it's their favorite steel. I have really enjoyed it when I have been using it. It holds that fine edge that it has for a really long time, and sharpening this has been really nice. And it deburrs very easy. It'll completely deburr off a 600 grit diamond stone, which that's really good, or that's really nice, because a lot of times it's hard to deburr steels on a diamond stone because they have almost like a set amount of cutting, and even if you use light pressure, sometimes it still will remove more metal than you want to. But sharpening, this thing sharpens up very easily. A lot of people might be concerned, oh, it's a high carbide steel, it's going to be hard to sharpen. I heard someone on a random Facebook group say that K390 is hard to sharpen. No, this is not hard to sharpen at all. It feels better. I prefer sharpening this over like 20 CV M390, because a lot of times those are run softer. I'd rather sharpen this than like D2 or something. Overall, this is a very good steel to sharpen. The HRC on it feels great, and the edge geometry on this is also very good. Let me get a measurement right here. So we are looking 16 thousandths behind the edge on this guy, which is thinner than your average Spyderco. Usually from the Golden, Colorado factory, they are about 100 and, no, what am I saying? They're about 20 thousandths behind the edge, but at the stock, it's close to 100 and, or like 0.11, about 0.13, I guess I could say. No, 1.1, close to about, no, what am I saying? I don't even know. Whatever, okay, I'm all over the place here. I just set my knife where I put my calipers, and okay, let's move on. So anyway, the stock thickness is actually thinner than your PM2. I'm not going to make this a video kind of comparing these two. I'll do a separate video for that. But yeah, I really like to see Spyderco grinding this knife thinner with a thinner stock. Overall, it's just going to be a better performer, and I really have noticed that. It has performed great, and I really do enjoy this. I did some research on this knife. I actually found out this is kind of like a part of Spyderco's hunting line of knives, and that makes sense with the blade shape because this simple drop point here, this belly is good for like skinning or something like that. I haven't used it for that, but I have used it for a lot of my everyday things like cutting up a bunch of cardboard, and it has performed very well with that. It's got flat here, a little bit of belly. I like it because the tip isn't super high like on some knives with a belly like that, and so this makes it still easy to do cuts if you want to use that tip on like a flat surface like this. So I'm a fan of this blade shape. Anything else I gotta say about the blade? I don't know. I've really been enjoying K390, really been enjoying the edge geometry, sharpening this, using this. Overall, this blade, there really isn't that much wrong with it. Other than if this thing was 10 thousandths behind the edge, that would be amazing, but it's still a real positive that it's 16 thousandths when your average Spyderco from Golden is about 20 thousandths. So that's all I got for the blade. Let's move on to the fit and finish. And I have actually been really impressed by this fit and finish. Now, the Seki City, Japan factory still has its issues. You know, there was a comment on my first impressions video. A guy was like, he basically just had a whole lot of issues with this knife, and that's not... that's kind of stuff that you'll see, you know, off-centering. Sometimes a burr will be on the screw or on the blade, on the actual edge still, which is never something that you want to see. I remember the factory edge on this, usually from Spyderco, they're like screaming sharp. This one wasn't really that sharp, which for some people is like, makes them really mad. But even if it was screaming sharp, I would have dulled it and then sharpened it anyway to get off any fatigue steel. But still, I don't think the factory edge was very good. And other than that, fit and finish has been spot on. Look at the centering. It is pretty much dead center, which is something that I remember on my Delica I didn't really see. I can wiggle out a little bit of flex with this, but it's completely usable. Really, the only way it would bother you is if you have some like weird OCD with your side-to-side blade play. Some of these back locks, I can muscle out some up and down play. No experience with this thing even coming close to failing, but you know, I just wanted to let you guys know about that. The back lock is done very well, and the only fit and finish issue that I actually like modded this knife, if you will, to fix is the inside of these FRN scales was not knocked down as much as I would have liked it. So it literally took like 3 minutes with a little piece of 600 grit sandpaper, just kind of knocking that corner down on the inside of the handle, and now you don't feel a sharp edge at all. So let's talk about the ergonomics of this, and the ergonomics on this really have impressed me. They are honestly probably, I would say, the best ergos on any Spyderco that I own. A close second would probably be the Native or the Gale Bradley 2. But let's see why these ergonomics are so good. One, it's a pretty thick handle, especially for how thin the blade stock is. You know, I kind of thought maybe they'd do a really just thin knife overall, but it's still got a beefy handle to it. But one thing I like, as you can see, this is just flat right here, this first part. And so when you're holding this in the choked up grip, it is your hand just hitting a flat part right there. If you look at a knife like, let's just pull out the PM2. Actually, no, the Manix is probably a better example. This is not flat here. It dips down a little bit. So the main point of contact in your hand is back here. And so that allows it to wiggle up a bit. And when there is resistance pushing the knife back, it is pushing into your hand right there, and that can create a little bit of a hot spot over time. But this one, since it's flat, I've had no issues with that. And this grip, there are no hot spots at all. It's very comfortable in the hand. Really one of the most comfortable grips you can possibly get on a knife, so I'm a really big fan of that. You know, this does have a thing where the thumb hole ramps up, which is kind of annoying, but usually I'm like this. And also another grip that is very good is this pinch grip. So I put my thumb about on the pivot and then wrap my pointer finger like that, and I can do cuts like pretty much any way I want to like this. That is also extremely comfortable. This choke back grip, I don't really use it much. It's probably not as good as the other two, but if you're doing light cutting with it, it would work just fine. But overall, I'm extremely impressed with the ergonomics, some of the best on any Spyderco I have, and these very comfortable ergonomics with this very thin blade just makes it an excellent cutter because you can put a ton of force into cuts and you don't have to worry about a hot spot, which usually when your hand starts hurting, you obviously stop pushing down as hard, which makes the cut harder to get through. So overall, this is just a very good performer. I've really been impressed with how comfortable this knife is and how good it cuts. Now let's talk about the carry of this. Carry, a lot of people probably won't like the position of this pocket clip because you've got like that much hanging out of your pocket. Honestly, I don't really get the complaints for it. You can get an MXG or Lynch, I assume, deep carry clip on this, which could solve that problem. But I still don't get the whole like obsession over pocket clips being deep carry. Like for work, my shirt has to be tucked in, and so my knife, my whole pocket clip is showing. Never had anyone freak out about it. Never had anyone be scared about it, and it just makes it easier to pull out of the pocket since you have more to grab onto instead of like a deep carry clip where you're grabbing onto it like that or something. So will never see the complaints with a deep carry or the need to feel like every knife should be a deep carry, but you know, everyone has their preferences, so I can't really tell someone their opinion is just plain wrong. It slides in and out of their pocket nicely. This spoon clip from the Spyderco factory, it works really good. A lot of people immediately get a knife and then immediately go buy a deep carry clip, but it's just a great solid clip. It's good in the hand. You really have no issues with this. So yeah, I carry. It might not be people's favorite knife in the world to carry, but I have not had any issues with it. I'm usually not a very picky person when it comes to the carry of my knives, but still, it overall has been good for me. We're looking 3.6 ounces. You know, don't really care about the weight that much, but a solid weight. Ounce to inch ratio, people, I think that's probably a little bit heavier than you, but really, are you really one of those people? Because please, it just, the logic on that doesn't make much sense to me either. Overall, carrying this has worked perfectly fine. I have no complaints with it at all. You can carry it in any position that you would like. Now let's talk about the action. So the action has really impressed me with this knife. You know, backlocks, Spyderco usually does a good job with their backlocks, but sometimes they do some better than others. This one, I can flick out, I can drop it to my finger and then close it. So that's all I want. I have no issues with that at all. And it really works great. I prefer to slow roll my backlocks because the tension when you're opening the backlock comes from, what is it, the torsion bar? Would that be the proper term for the spring in this backlock? So you are just really fighting the tension on that. And so the slow roll, it's not like a detent where it just jumps out like that, but a slow roll, you control of it, you're in control. It's a very nice and smooth opening, and that's usually what I do. But for those fidgeters, can I Spidey flick it? Yeah, I can Spidey flick it. You might need a little bit of wrist though, or to kind of think about it when you do it. But also, you can thumb flick it. You can really... I'm impressed with this backlock action. You know, for the hardcore fidgeters out there, it probably won't beat your compression lock. But the people who want a compression lock on every single knife, I don't know, that kind of, it just, Seki City doesn't do a compression lock, so get over it, I guess. In backlocks, I say this every time I review a backlock. I don't see what all the hate is for them. They're simple, they're effective, they work, and they're easy to use. If you hand this knife to someone, there's a good chance they're going to know how to close it with a compression lock. They're lost as last year's Easter eggs. But yeah, overall, backlock's very simple, very effective, and they work great for me. And I really feel like the only people who like dislike backlocks, the only valid excuse I can see is that it's just not as fun to play with, which isn't something that I really care about all that much. But overall, the action has really impressed me. Very well done. Really all I could ask for out of a backlock. Now for the value. So the value on this knife, 140 bucks. And I usually don't say this with Spyderco knives, but that is one of the best values out there on the market, because K390 is probably one of the best production steels out there on the market. So if this knife speaks to you, maybe the Endura does, or the Indela, Delica, any of these K390 line of knives, I think that value is one of the best that there is, because you're getting probably the best steel that you can get out there without having to spend like $200, $250 up and up with a custom maker. And so overall, I'm a really big fan of that price. One of the best deals out there on the market today. And if you're tired of buying, you know, your Civivis and your Wee knives and Riots and stuff, I think that this would be a really cool knife to just give it a shot. I really like it. And the stretch, man, this thing has impressed me more than I ever thought it would. I thought I'd just get it and then be like, yeah, I like it. K390 is cool and all, but it's still kind of just like a backlog PM2. Absolutely not. I've really enjoyed this. I'm not going to do an update to my top 10 Spydercos for a while, just because I haven't really got many since I did that video a couple months back. But this will definitely be up there in the top 5, might even be up there in the top 3. So overall, really impressed with this knife, really happy with how it has performed. And honestly, my suggestion is go buy one right now if you're interested in K390, or if you like the Endura more, get that one too. I think more people in the knife community need to try out K390, need to realize that it's not super hard to sharpen, and rust isn't really that big of an issue. I forgot to mention this. There is slight patina spots right there. I got sweet tea on this knife somehow. I don't know. I just like picked it up and there was like a couple drops of sweet tea, and then I had that on there and it wouldn't go away, but that's on me. Overall, this knife does not rust, or I have not really noticed any rust issues that I couldn't solve with a little bit of Flitz polish and like a Q-tip. So really haven't had any issues with this at all. Overall, I'm really happy with this knife. I think it's one of Spyderco's best releases this year. And maybe if you are a Spyderco fanboy, instead of buying that next PM2 Sprint Run, you get this one for a cheaper price. That would be my suggestion. But obviously, do what you want with your money. I really don't care. But that's all I got for today. Thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe if you're new. And I'll see you guys in the next one.